You ever have one of those moments where you realize someone has absolutely no idea who they're dealing with? Well, that was me the morning an HOA board member who, I'll politely call Keran, stormed down the gravel path, screaming that I couldn't park my truck by her lake. Except it wasn't her lake. It wasn't the HOA's lake. It wasn't even community property. I owned the lakefront lots outright, deed and all. And that morning, as the sun came up behind the water and lit her up like a dramatic movie villain, I knew this was going to be a story worth telling. It all started because I'd pulled my old pickup down to the shoreline to unload some fencing, panels for a project I'd been putting off. I lived just outside the main part of the subdivision, but technically still within the boundary lines the HOA keeps, trying to stretch like taffy. My lakefront property predates the HOA by nearly 30 years. But that tiny detail never seems to register. With people like Keran, she strutted down like she owned half the county, waving a clipboard that probably weighed more than her sense of reason. "Sir, you can't park here," she snapped, tapping the driver's side door like she was scolding a dog. "This violates HOA Rule 14, no vehicles within 100 feet of the shoreline." I didn't even look up at first. I just said, "Good thing your rules don't apply." That sentence was gasoline on a bonfire. Her eyes narrowed. "Everything inside the neighborhood lines is under the HOA. That includes this lake." I finally turned, leaned against the tailgate, and said, "Actually, the lakefront is mine. Private property, deeded, recorded, surveyed. You're welcome to ask the county." It was like telling a toddler. Santa wasn't real. But here's where things took a funny turn. While she was ranting, her teenage daughter wandered down the hill behind her. Instead of backing her mom up, she grew fascinated with my cows grazing near the water. Within minutes, the girl had whipped out her phone and started posing with them like they were celebrity guests on a red carpet. That's when I felt the spark of an idea, one that would lead to tractor-sized mischief, a massive misunderstanding, and a showdown involving a manure loader I definitely shouldn't have enjoyed as much as I did. Little did I know that her daughter's impromptu photo shoot would be the spark that pushed everything straight into absurd territory. What started as an annoying morning scolding was about to turn into a full-blown saga, involving confused neighbors, HOA threats, and the most ridiculous confrontation the lake had ever witnessed today. Keran was still mid-rant about proper community standards, but her daughter had wandered so far from the conversation that she might as well have been on a different planet. While Keran lectured me about bylaws she'd clearly memorized for sport, the girl was crouched in the tall grass near my oldest cow, Marigold, treating her like a backdrop for a farm-themed fashion shoot. I tried to pay attention to Keran, I really did. But it's hard to take someone seriously when their teenager is over there striking poses like she's auditioning for a cattle-inspired music video. At one point, she even tried to wrap an arm around Marigold's neck. Marigold, a gentle old girl with the patience of a saint, just stared at her with the expression cows reserve for situations far beyond their understanding. When Keran finally noticed her daughter, she spun around so fast her sunglasses nearly flew off. "Amber, get away from that animal," she screeched. Amber didn't even look up. "Mom, chill. She's cute. Oh my gosh, this lighting is perfect." Keran turned back toward me like I'd personally orchestrated the downfall of civilized society. "You need to control your livestock." I raised an eyebrow. "She's standing still. Your daughter's climbing on her like a jungle gym." Keran opened her mouth, but no words came out, just pure, simmering frustration. And that's when it happened. The thought, the mischievous spark, the idea that would carry this whole ridiculous situation to a place neither of us could have predicted. See, sitting about 20 feet behind me was my manure loader, parked and ready because I'd been clearing the pasture earlier that morning. It was the kind of machine that made big, impressive arcs of organic chaos when handled just right. And as I watched Keran's daughter pose for yet another selfie, I imagined just how funny it would be to roll the loader into the background of her photos. Just in the background, mind you, not doing anything messy. I'm not a monster. But the mental image of me casually photobombing her glamour shots with a bright red machine full of cow manure was too perfect to ignore. So while Keran stormed up the hill to pull her daughter away, I quietly cranked the ignition. The loader rumbled to life with a deep, earthy growl that echoed across the lake. Amber immediately perked up, eyes shining with curiosity. "Oh my gosh, is that thing yours?" she shouted. "That would look amazing in my pictures." Keran froze mid-step. I smiled, and the wheels, literal and metaphorical, began to turn. Keran wasn't ready for what happened next, and honestly, neither was I. The moment the manure loader roared to life, Amber dashed toward it like she'd discovered a rare wild creature destined to elevate her social media status. She held up her phone, angling it with practiced precision, and shouted, "Stand right there! That lighting is insane." I played along, easing the loader forward until it sat perfectly framed behind her. I kept the bucket raised just enough to look dramatic but not threatening. The moment felt surreal, like we had accidentally wandered onto the set of a very strange commercial. Amber snapped picture after picture, completely oblivious to her mother's rising horror. Keran sprinted down the hill, waving her arms and shouting, "Amber! Get away from that thing!" Her voice cracked with alarm, which only made Amber laugh harder. To her, this was harmless fun. To Keran, it was the apocalypse riding a tractor. I kept both hands visible, making it clear I wasn't about to dump anything. But the image of her daughter posing in front of a manure loader was clearly breaking her brain. "Sir!" Keran yelled, pointing like she was accusing me in a courtroom drama. "You are creating a hazardous situation." I shrugged. "I'm parked on my property, operating my equipment safely. Your daughter wandered over on her own." That only made her more frantic. Amber, meanwhile, had climbed onto a fence rail, trying to get a higher angle shot of the cows, the lake, and the loader all in one majestic composition. She even shouted, "This is gonna get so many likes!" Keran reached her breaking point. She grabbed Amber by the wrist and yanked her down, hissing something about boundaries, lawsuits, and inappropriate farm machinery. Amber groaned dramatically, muttering that her mom was ruining everything. I powered down the loader, the engine rumbling into silence. For a moment, the only sound was the wind moving across the lake and Keran's furious breathing. Then she turned that fury toward me. "This," she said, gesturing wildly at the entire landscape, "is unacceptable. I will be filing a complaint with the HOA." I almost laughed. "Go right ahead," I replied. "Just remember the HOA doesn't control this land, and their rules don't override private property law." That statement lit a fuse. Keran sputtered, opened her mouth to argue, then stormed off with Amber trailing behind, still editing her photos. Little did I know, the real chaos was still coming. What none of us realized was that the photos Amber snapped, featuring cows, lake reflections, and the looming loader, would race across the group chat like wildfire, dragging neighbors into the situation before anyone had time to blink that very day. By late afternoon, the neighborhood group chat had blown up like a fireworks warehouse in July. Apparently, Amber's selfies, featuring Marigold, the lake, and me smiling proudly beside the manure loader, had traveled at light speed through every HOA committee member's phone. The captions people added ranged from confused to dramatic, including my favorite, "Why is heavy machinery parked on common property?" The best part? That phrase alone ensured I'd be receiving visitors very soon. Sure enough, as the sun dipped low, 3 HOA board members arrived in a solemn little convoy of golf carts. Keran marched in front like a general leading troops into battle. They parked crookedly, blocking my driveway like they expected resistance. I was sitting on the tailgate of my truck sipping iced tea and giving Marigold a head scratch. She'd earned it. Keran pointed at me with the dramatic flair of someone narrating a true crime reenactment. "This is the man. This is the one causing chaos near the lake." The board members looked at me, then at the lake, then at the loader, like they were still trying to piece the situation together. One finally cleared his throat. "Sir, we've received complaints alleging you brought industrial equipment onto HOA property for non-approved activities. Is that correct?" I slid off the tailgate, walked over to my storage shed, and returned with a neatly organized folder. I opened it slowly, savoring the moment, then handed him the top document. A copy of my deed with every lakefront parcel clearly labeled under my name. "This," I said, tapping the highlighted boundaries, "is my land. These are my lots. They've been mine since long before the HOA existed. Your rules don't apply here, and they never have." The man's eyebrows lifted so high they nearly left his forehead. Keran's face, on the other hand, went through a speed run of emotions: confusion, denial, anger, and something resembling existential dread. One board member squinted at the map. "So, all of this is yours?" "All of it," I confirmed. "The shoreline, the pasture, the access path, even the spot where your golf carts are currently trespassing." Keran's mouth dropped open. "Trespassing? We are not trespassing." "Oh, but you are," I replied casually. "But don't worry. I'm not filing anything, just letting you know how property lines actually work." The board members exchanged looks. One muttered, "We'll update the records." Another whispered, "I told you this felt wrong." Keran stood frozen, defeated by paperwork. It was glorious. As they retreated, Amber waved from the back of a cart, whispering, "Your cows are iconic!" That almost made the whole ordeal worthwhile. And just like that, the lakefront saga ended, with clarity, cows, and one perfectly timed manure loader cameo. Enjoying this wild HOA showdown and the chaos that unfolded by the lake? Go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss more real-life stories from the property line. If this saga gave you a laugh, tap that like button and drop a comment below. What would you have done if someone tried to enforce rules on land you actually own?